In this episode, I'm going to be reviewing House of the Dragon. I'm going to be reviewing episode 1 and 2, so beware there's spoilers from those episodes. I'm going to give in my opinions as a person who's been a fan of the books, The Lore, The World of Ice and Fire, and the two other short stories, The Rogue Prince and Princess and the Queen, that are basically the primary material for this show, and Fire and Blood, obviously. And I'm gonna talk about the differences between the two series. This is Portals to Terra. Prepare your brains to get fucked. Greetings, Terrarians. Welcome to another episode of Portals to Terra. Today is a quick, again, knee-jerky episode. Knee-jerks to Terra is the name of this segment, because I need to have names for every fucking segment because of OCD. Gonna talk about House of Dragon, but in general, assume that there will be spoilers about episode 1 and 2. But I won't, jump into the spoilers. I'll just a few things. First of all, I really like this shit. When Game of Thrones ended, I thought like I'm done with, because I'm a huge fan of the books. And they butchered it. Like the thing that happened with Game of Thrones that I think we all, whether if you've read the books or you haven't read the books, you understand is that they lost the Martin-esque touch of how things felt very Martin-like the way he wrote things, the way stories unfolded. There's a little bit of He always says there's three names: Shakespeare, Stan Lee, and Tolkien. And mishmash them together, you get Martin, because this is his three biggest idols that he always says. So there's a little bit of all that in there, and we lost that, like that feeling of the mysticism, especially reading the books. I think what they failed with it was Stannis' storyline that was so mystical, and the whole like Dragonstone, Targaryens, all that. But I think they butchered it. They butchered the whole magic, the mysticism of it. They even butchered the characters. They butchered everything. And to say that I don't have any objection with how, like, let's say Daenerys' storyline ended. I think it will end the same in the books, and I really like it. Actually, I think it makes sense. It's very Shakespearean. It's a especially if you take like a freaking kid who's homeless and is being abused all her life up until the age 14. At 14, she goes through, like, she watches her brother die, all that trauma, and then you emerge with three dragons. How can you not go full Kanye, Like, this is a... So I understand, and he always said Game of Thrones is about how... he always thought when he finished Lord of the Rings, he thought, well, then what was Aragorn's tax policy? That was never mentioned. They never said what kind of a king it is. They just, like, they conquer and they win the wars, and all the heroism of the knights and the kings and the the brave men of Middle Ages. But the Song of Ice and Fire is a parody of that. In a sense, it's a modernist take or a postmodern take on that idea, which is what it should be. And it's funny that they're airing both of them simultaneously, like the Lord of the Rings one and House of the Dragon. And it, I mean, I had to pick one because I can't follow both right now. I'm watching this one, but it's a question of whether if you want the myth or the reality. Do you want the postmodern? Because that's what it is, Game of Thrones. It takes an old format, but it's not really a fantasy even or a myth. It's a very postmodern drama, in a political fiction in a sense. Whereas in Tolkien's world, dragons have a mythological function, whereas in his world, dragons are more like, let's say, a political analogy, like for nuclear weapon or whatever, absolute power. And so um, I think what this show got right is that essence, that Martin feeling of like you watch it and you're like, oh, this is way more Game of Thrones than Game of Thrones ever since season 3 or 4. Which is by the time like it was the point where they should have had Lady Stoneheart and at the end of season 4 and they didn't, and I was like, okay, this is like I was cutting them a slack over all the deviations from the, but I was like, this one's fine, that one's fine, I don't care. Jamie didn't arrive arrived earlier. He didn't arrive at the time when Joffrey died, like the books. Yeah, it's okay. But then when you get to the point where they've literally cut out the most interesting part of the third book, part 2, which was Lady Stoneheart, you get pissed. And then they just fucked it up. Feast for Crows was just a fucked up book in its own, and then they fucked it even further up. Dance with Dragons, I don't think, I think they fucked it up. But about this, about the new the House of the Dragon thing, why I like it is, first of all, reading the history of it, because everything is written in like history format. In the way I read it, I did not read Fire and Blood, which is, so then there's the World of Ice and Fire, which is like the history of the whole world. And then there's Fire and Blood, which takes just the Targaryen part, just part 1 of it, like from Aegon's conquest to the end of the dance, or I think Blackfire Rebellion. I don't even think so. I think Blackfire Rebellion is in part 2, so even till like the end of the dance. Uh, and it's one intensive book, which most of these details come from there. I don't know those. Like I knew overall stuff. I didn't know these little details, which then later I googled it, and it turns out yeah they are canon and they are in the. But the way I read it was more like an example. Why was in episode 1 you see the Daemon Targaryen was exiled to uh Erie, what was it, Runestone, where House Royce is, um in the Vale, uh and so when in the book, it's their theories. Like it says that there were two. I want to actually see. I'm looking forward to seeing these characters. Like there's this guy called Mushroom who was a jester, and there was this Archmaester. And one of them says that Damon was exiled because of a quarrel with his brother. Some say he left because of this. There is one account which I believed in my head, which was that he was caught seducing or having sex with Rhaenyra. Uh, that would make the most sense to me. But then we see here the whole story with the heir for a day, and that he disrespected the king's heir. And I checked it out, and in Fire and Blood, it's apparently that's what happens. Um, but yeah, so I read that book, and I've also then read there is a short story called Princess and the Queen. And I would have actually liked if the show was called Princess and the Queen, unless they're gonna do different stuff in each season. Like here's what my concern is. I could wrap up the whole of Dance in one season, but they're talking about multiple seasons. I'm like, I don't think there's that much content there. I think two, maybe two max, but I don't think. I think in 10 episodes, if you do time jumps, which they are gonna, you can wrap it up. But but let's see what they do. But what I would have done is I would have started from the beginning, a show called House of the Dragon. Okay, start from Aegon's conquest. Go to that's one season of just the conquest, and then you have one season of Maegor versus Aenys and stuff. Then you have like then you go here. This is season 3, and then there's stuff like Blackfire Rebellion. Then Duncan, the Tales of Duncan Egg can be its own spin-off. There's so much good shit, but I don't think that you can milk Just Dance for how many seasons. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what they do. Episode 2 already looked a little draggy. We'll see what they do. Like episode 2 in the World of Ice and Fire was just one paragraph. But anyways, I would have called this show or this season The Princess and the Queen. And I'll tell you why. Because that's, I think, the best name is a better name than House of the Dragon. And it's a more Shakespearean name. We'll get to why, and it's really the beauty of the show. Um, Then there is another short. So that short story, Princess and the Queen, I've read it as a one-off, but it was in a collection of Dangerous Women, collection with other authors. There's another anthology book called The Rogues, and in it there's a story called The Rogue Prince, which is about Damon, and it's before Princess and the Queen, and it's about what led to the dance, which is most of what we're seeing now. So maybe the season one will be more Rogue Prince, season two will be Princess and the Queen. I wouldn't do that. I think and then that would be a bit more draggy, and you're gonna have fillers, and we're gonna have 10 sex scenes and 10 minutes of a C-section fucking video, which for no fucking reason. So there's a little bit of that. It's not TV, it's HBO. It's a little bit of that shit, but I'm already kind of glad that there's like if they had more sex here, that would be a little unnecessary. They suddenly cut from all the sex, but at the same time, there's some creepinesses about it, which I was thinking like how they cast Rhaenyra's actress is 22. She looks younger. It's a very smart thing because with Daenerys they couldn't have the whole Khal Drogo scene, so on and so forth. Rhaenyra is going to have another actress because we've seen it in the trailer. Uh, However, Allison's actress stays the same, and she's 28. So they just use makeup and shit to make her super young, and then they use makeup to make her older than what she is, and then they have a time span of like an Allison's from a teenage up to I think her 40s, 30s. I think that could be the age. Yeah, so we're gonna have to see a time span of like that. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to how they do that. Um, but yeah, but this is how what the story is out there and how I know it, and they're mishmash all of these sources together to get some real. And this is what I like about it. Again, it's exactly like the books. It's exactly like the lore. They didn't just add random. Like I thought, oh my god, they're gonna put a bunch of Starks and Lannisters there just to get a high, just because people want to see more Starks and shit. No, but they introduced the houses that should have been there, which are Hightowers, Valerians, and these are important houses. They've been mentioned a lot, even in the Ice and Fire story, like the Game of Thrones stories, but not really in the show. And I'm glad we're diving into these other houses like the Dustin and I don't know, Malister and all this different houses is it's interesting, and especially seeing Valerians and why okay, people were also online. They were going crazy over Corlys Valerian's race of his actor. Just fuck off. Just you have a bunch of Valerians. They all have white hair. I actually do appreciate if half of them are black. Like at least you can go. Okay, these are Targaryens. Those are Valerians. It makes sense. And who the fuck knows? And by the way, it's far east in Valeria. A lot of people live there. A lot of race. I don't know. We don't know. It's okay. I totally accept. I don't know. This whole people are like so, and I get because like some like we have Captain Marvels where the movies like literally shit because it's all just it agenda, and then there are people where they're just being realist. Just they're women who are characters and they're gay people and stuff, and a lot of people are like, oh, but the woke, like they're woke wash. I'm like, no. Listen, there's extreme woke washing, like where it just like doesn't serve any purpose, and then there's just fucking people, gay characters, women, like and somehow people are just so sensitive and ready to be oh, they're woke washing. Just fucking watch it, man. Fucking watch it. And by the way, it's the same freaking story that was written before even the term woke was coined. This was out there for 14 years, the dance and all this, what happens, and the whole basic thing about it. It's been out there for freaking years. But anyways, it's there's got to be more of that. There's going to be more. This is a story where it's about where women are the main power in a sense. In a sense, it's different from Game of Thrones because this is a time where, as it's been foreshadowed, a bunch of women have been fucked over. It's about that basically. I think, and they've started the show in a really good way. But there is this men on top, and then a bunch of women are being um, the subject of this game, and then the next act is then these women are on top, and 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 um, and it's basically a consequence of the injustice that has been done to them. But the main characters of the story will be women, and reading it, like, I think that it's a good choice, because reading the history has been the most interesting part. I think that even reading it in history format, characters like Damon and Rhaenyra are just like interesting characters. Especially Damon is a very fucking interesting character, and I like what they're doing with him, because I like how I love how online people are like, oh, I see who's the villain. Like Damon is set up as the new Joffrey or whatever. I'm like, nah, guys, there's no like Damon is maybe the new Jay. Here's the thing with this show: whoever you love will disappoint you, and whoever you hate will do something that you will applaud. Uh, this is just how the story is. I would say Damon is more of a Jamie Lannister kind of character. They show you his worst in episode one, and I think, knowing the stories, most of the things that come after that about him should be, you know, he has redeeming qualities, but he's a very fucked up character. Don't get me wrong, but it's it's not black and white. Like, as you can see, he cares. He's a person who's been uh who's had a troubled childhood, always an outcast. Uh, so that's why he always is so affiliated with. Like, he doesn't really, I think, want the throne. And this is also very fun that people are very quick to say on Reddit, "Oh, I see what the story is. Yeah, just go on with it. It's about this evil uncle who wants to take over the throne from this Simba and Scar." And I'm like, guys, you just gotta keep watching. You just gotta keep watching, because that's a whole complicated. It plays with a bunch of archetypes, but it finally gives you the conflict. And I think episode 2 had more hints of what the real conflict here is, because it's not one conflict, it's a bunch of conflicts. Is A versus B, C versus D, a bunch of different conflicts, and they all suddenly become aligned at some point, and it becomes blacks versus greens. um Also, about blacks versus greens, I wouldn't really say also that this the dance is a civil war, in a sense that um it's more of, like, I think House Hightower and House Valerian also infiltrate, especially House Hightower. I think it was more like uh more of a, again, intrigue between houses, and but that's just the way I see it. I don't know. It is a civil war, in a sense that it is between Targaryens, but as at the time, everybody kind of has Targaryen blood in all these families. So it's a very, very complicated blood. Again, the concept of blood and all that, very complicated. In the books, I don't think Viserys ever really names Rhaenyra his heir. That was also interesting for me. I need to check again. I don't recall this. I know he loved her, and I know he wanted her to be heir, but I don't think there was any official ceremony. Maybe there was, actually. That makes sense in what's to come, but I don't know. We'll see. Um, I One thing I didn't like is that they didn't make a new intro in episode 2. We see the whole Game of Thrones like intro, but the intro this time is Viserys's sculpture of King's Landing. Didn't like it. I didn't like that we have the same intro song. I never liked it, although I love the whole of Ramin Djawadi's work on Westworld and Game of Thrones, on so on and so forth. But it's just not that this is. I wish they had the main Targaryen theme, a rendition of that, but whatever. What else? About the casting, I think they nailed it. I think they nailed it. I did not imagine Damon to look like this. He's a little too cute. Matt Smith, he's a little too cute for Damon. He has this baby face. I thought Damon was more uh, a Quentin nose, kind of like chiseled jaw guy. But anyway, but yeah. Uh, It doesn't have the darkness of Daemon's Fate, but I'm starting to buy it. It's really cool. Like I still with Game of Thrones, like some characters like Daenerys in my head is never Emilia Clarke. It's what I imagine from the books and from the Fantasy Flight card game pictures and from like illustrations and calendar I had. But some characters like Tyrion or Brienne or Jaime or Cersei are exactly the actors and actresses in the show because they just exactly like Jamie and Cersei, just exactly how they are. So ever since then, when I'm even reading the books, I imagine them like that. Jon Snow, I don't. Jon Snow is more relatable, more similar to me in a sense in the books. I don't relate to this guy. He's a little, um, I would say, chatty. Um, uh, Yeah, I think that the actor Paddy Considine, I mean, of course, it's also great. The only thing I don't understand is all the Targaryens with white hair and then black beard. I'm like, what's going? Why is it Paddy Considine? But it is what it is. This is their version, and nobody has purple eyes. Although Rhaenyra is wearing a purple earrings, which gives the whole vibe of the Targaryen color palette, but still good. Rhaenyra's actress is amazing. She looks more Daenerys than Daenerys. I wish she was Daenerys. That would have been bomb. Um, but yeah, in total, I think episode 1 and 2 were really good. Sir Kristen Cole, like all the, it's just really good to see all these actors and actresses come to, like these characters basically come to life, and they really did a good job with this. They really did a good job with the setting, with every little stuff they say about like, oh, Damon will be the next Maegor. Which they should go through. I think the whole story of like Aegon, because like Aegon when he came with his two sisters. And he had a son from each sister, one Aenys, one Maegor. Aenys Targaryen. I was thinking Rehearsal sounds like a Targaryen dragon name, like Rehearsal Targaryen, Dracarys, Rehearsal, Reherilis, Rehearsal, Aenys Targaryen. They hate us because they ain't us. Rehearsal. Um, yeah, so Aegon has two sons. Aenys is the oldest. He's like kind of weak, nerdy, kind, loves everybody, very lovable. Maegor is huge, powerful, cruel at the same time, a bully. When Aegon dies, Maegor takes Balerion and Dark Sister, his mom's sword, flies away. Aenys is basically too soft and gives the whole kingdom to the church and the faith and the septons, and they just start making it a theocracy under his rule, and he's not powerful enough to stand up to it. After him, there's this question of whether if Aenys's kids should rule or should it be Maegor. Uh, well, Aenys is not there to decide, and Maegor is the biggest dick on Balerion and Dark Sister, so he comes and takes everything. He raised this war against the Faith, and then there are groups called the Faith Militants and the Warrior Sons or something, and they all uprising just like the ones in High Sparrow and Cersei's situation. They start uprising and the whole place just basically do terrorist attacks and shit. It's a whole war, and he starts burning any sept or any like church or anything that he sees. The guy is a big atheist, basically. But he has 6 wives. He can't have any sons from any of them. Finally, he dies on the throne. I think he kills himself on the throne because Jaehaerys, one of the sons of Aenys, basically the other brother, is crowned by the Baratheons, and the whole realm rallies on his side. So he has no hope. So he just like commits suicide. But I think that and then so Jaehaerys is that old king that you see in the beginning, and in the council he starts. In the Council of 101, they rule basically that it's always, first of all, it's always the male heir of the oldest overpowers, like the brother. So basically, Maegor wouldn't be king. That's why Daemon here isn't king. And so we see here in small council, somebody says Maegor would be like I think Otto Hightower obviously says some like Maegor would be. I'm sorry, Daemon would be another Maegor or even worse. There's all these little references to like Queen Nymeria and everything. I really love how they're like all these Easter eggs of the lore that wasn't really present really in Game of Thrones, especially in the last seasons. And I really appreciate how they're, throwing a little bone at people who actually are deep into the lore of the world and everything. It's very Shakespearean. It's going to be great. I saw this beautiful thing in the trailer, which I think foreshadows everything. Is a picture of Rhaenyra and Alicent praying next to each other, and then there's a picture of them sitting apart. Which I know I can guess what it is. It is at the tourney. It's at a certain tourney in 115 or somewhere in the future, which I think we'll see in the future episodes. And where she's wearing green and she's wearing black, and the whole term of blacks and greens comes from. And I think they're doing it really good. Every scene with Alicent and Rhaenyra is really cool to me. I'm just watching it like, oh boy, here comes the. Anyways, I think I gave a lot away, but uh, because I was like one of my friends was like, "Don't tell me who dies." I was like, "Everybody, it's history. Everybody's dead." Yeah, and we see all this tension rising. We see there's basically Daemon and Otto Hightower, and the tension there, and then there's the tension over the air. There's the Valerians, and somehow all this will align into beautiful lines at some point. And that's very Shakespearean about it. That's very complicated in the sense that it has so many characters, and it kind of Hamletian in a way. uh Othello, like that kind of like, I hated Othello, by the way. This is not like Othello, but you see a lot of Shakespeare in Martin's story, especially with like Stannis was basically Macbeth and Melisandre was Lady Macbeth, like that kind of stuff. And I really like it. Like there are parts of Shakespeare's story, because Shakespeare's stories are so different from one another. There's some of them that I really like. I really like Midsummer Night's Dream. I really like Macbeth. I really like Hamlet. And I really like Tempest. And I think these are a lot of these inspirations are there in Martin's story. And I'm looking forward to more character development with Daemon, Rhaenyra, and other characters, and I'm looking forward to what people will think of Daemon, because again, he will remain a great character, I think, until the end. You can't ever say if he's a good guy or a bad guy. He's a human, like most of them. Like most of them. Even Viserys is a very nice guy, but even now you see flaws and flawed people, all of them. And that's the beauty of it, I guess. Anyways, that was it. That was the fourth review of House of Dragon. Looking forward to the other episodes. The special will be uploaded soon. Anyways, I've enjoyed that. This has been Portals to Terra. Prepare your brains to burn by dragon fire and blood.